I know I'm probably standing up here in between what I'm about to present and what morning tea we have out there in the room. So I promise I won't take too long to go through these 432 slides this morning. But before I start, who in the room knows what a digital workplace is? Could you raise your hands? Who in the room knows what an intranet is? Raise your hands. Just a different play on words, essentially, right? So before I go through, I'll just give you a little bit of a brief background about myself and my organisation. So, as I said, I'm the co-founder, director and CTO of Novata Solutions. So Novata Solutions is an ICT consultancy here in Perth. We've been around for about 5 years, but I've been in the IT industry here in Perth for some 20 odd years. And I've gone through a lot of these intranet builds and custom developed builds, and I've seen what works and what doesn't work, right? So a lot of what I'm going to talk about today is why things fail. I'm also a father and a husband and an avid dog lover, and this is my little rom-com sitting on the lounge next to me, and he shares the same grey beard as I have as well. But I actually started life in a shed. I'm not sure if you can sort of tell by my rotundness. So when we talk about health and well-being, I've somewhat got the well-being part down, but I think I need to focus a bit on the health. So thanks you for reminding us. So, when I mention the word intranet, what's the first thing that comes to mind for most people? What we've sort of found is this notion of, it has a bit of a bad reputation or a poor reputation at times, right? So we see things about it being antiquated and it's static and it's text heavy and it's often out of date and there's stale content on there and it's hard to navigate, and it's just really difficult to use. And that's the sort of mentality that we that's the sort of discussion points and things that we hear a lot when we talk about intranet. So the industry as a whole is trying to change this around. So we hear about digital transformation and digital this and digital that, so it becomes that digital workplace. But why does it have a poor reputation, and why do about 90% of most intranets fail? So we have things like unclear governance. Who can be updated? Who should be updated? What sort of information should we be putting on there? And without some sort of clear governance, it just becomes a dumping ground of information that is not really relevant to most people today. There's sometimes an unclear purpose of why we need to have an intranet, right? What is it for? Is it just another tick in the box of a part of the strategy that we need to implement? Quite often the executives are not really engaged in the intranet. Again, it's just one of those strategy points that needs to be ticked off. Poor user experience, that really hard to use sort of experience that we find. Mentioned about stale and outdated content, and that comes down to that unclear governance. No personalisation, it becomes a bit of a push mentality. This is information as an organisation we want to push out to you, but I can't personalise it. And what do I need to get out of it as an individual, as an employee of the organisation? Too many sources of truth. Where do I go to find a policy or a procedure or a guideline? Or where's this information? Do I go to the HR system? Do I go to the internet? Do I go to my document management system? It's just really, really complex and difficult for most people to discover. It becomes really IT resource dependent. I need to make a change, an update, go to the help desk, raise a ticket with the IT. These things should be really simple and easy to do. One of the other really big ones is poor search. Just because we've got search, it doesn't mean it's worked. As we've gone through this sort of the last 20, 25 years of the internet and things like Google, search is so important. I had a discussion this morning about how we store things in Outlook, right? Do we store things in folders or do we keep them flat? And there's many people that store things differently. Most people in my organisation have a folder for a client and then a sent and a received folder. I have it very flat, so I do line search. So why can't I have that same search experience in a digital workplace? That's what we come to expect, and that's what we should have. Failed deployments. Deployments that take many, many months and sometimes years to deploy an intranet. Those are days gone past. And as I said, over the last 20 years being involved in the ICT industry here in Perth, I've seen this. I've seen where an intranet project has cost several hundreds of thousands of dollars, involves IT, involves getting servers, and it takes so long that by the time it gets launched, it's already out of date. It's no longer relevant to the organisation. So what is a digital workplace? As I said initially, it's just another word for an intranet, right? But it needs to be a purpose-built platform and a key ingredient for things like achieving workplace goals, employee communication, engagement, and driving corporate culture and values as well. So as I go through talking about digital workplace, it needs to be purpose-built. These days there are so many out-of-the-box solutions that we can just plug and play. It doesn't need to be IT built. We don't need to ensure that everyone in IT is across it. You know, we have things like Facebook Workplace, we have Teams these days, we have organisations like Lifetiles that provide us this ability today to really build these things purposefully. It needs to have purposeful UI. And by that, I'm not just saying it needs to look pretty, it needs to be purposeful for the organisation. We need to deploy things really rapidly. You know, we should be able to go on today and have something deployed within days, weeks, no longer months, no longer years. And we need to have this agile approach where we're putting things out, getting feedback and making those rapid changes. We need to have an omni-channel approach. The days of just focusing on desktop is gone. We need to be able to have Teams, we need to be able to have mobile, desktop, access to the information where we need it, the right information to the right people at the right time. Big one here is it needs to be a personalised experience. Me as an individual, I want information that's relevant to me from my work in my day. And that may change from today to tomorrow to next week, but it needs to be personalised. You know, I don't need to hear about things that has no bearing on my work today. It's about me and my team and then my organisation. I do need that governance, right? That stops that technical debt. That governance helps us understand who can, when, why, how things are updated. I need to make sure that if one of the focuses on policy management, you know, who can update those policies? Who can approve those policies? How do we ensure things are read and have read receipts? A SaaS approach today, we're all used to this. We all go on, we have the Microsoft 365, the Zooms, the Teams. We no longer have to have infrastructure on premise to drive these digital workplaces. And that SaaS approach allows us to be very rapid in nature. Point and click administration. We don't need to raise a help desk to change a page anymore. We want to be able to edit, click, drag, drop, done. And that's not only from the administrator's point of view, but that also relates back to my personal experience in personalising my workspace. A big one here is, for most organisations, it needs to have transparent pricing. You know, no longer these hidden costs of patching servers and having IT guys and so forth. You know, I know that it's going to cost me X amount per user, per month, finished. Scale up my pricing, scale down my pricing depending on how many people come and enter and exit my organisation. As I said, omnipresence approach. These days we spend more of our day and life within MS Teams or Zoom, having meetings. It's really important to ensure that I've got access to my information where and when. So some examples of what we've seen happening out there is to ensure that these digital workplaces has an employee-first approach. I want to see things like my applications, not all application links across the internet. I want to see my tasks, and my tasks are not just from one application, but I want to see an aggregated view of my tasks. Whether they're tasks in Planner, whether they're tasks to do with a project, whether they're tasks to do with something in another system. I want to see them on my time. I want to see workplace updates. Mission and value is really important because even though we're personalising this, it needs to still express the mission and the values and the culture of the organisation. Things like birthdays and anniversaries and who's in my team. Things like the ability to see my documents that I last worked on, and just simple things like leave calendars. As I said, it needs to be employee-centric, so the design needs to be employee-centric. We see that, especially over the last 18 months, 2 years, where we've had a lot of hybrid approaches, working from home and so forth. Making sure that the well-being, the health, the well-being, the safety of our employees is paramount. And a lot of these is about integration as well. It's not about saying we've got system A, B, and C. It's about saying I want to go to that one location and surface information from A, B, and C. We need to be thinking about things like keeping COVID-19 in mind. As we progress and we're opening the borders, we're becoming more vaccinated, there's more legislative or mandated requirements around, ensuring we have vaccination statuses. Whether we're storing these vaccination statuses within the digital workplace, in your HIRS system, or somewhere else, we should just be focusing on the one place to be able to manage and update that. Where am I working from today? In the health and wellbeing of understanding of where employees, are they working from home today? Are they working from the office today? Giving that easy ability for people to be able to let us know. And as employees, we have a responsibility as well. So some key features, as I said before, things like my links, real simple things, but allowing the employee to personalise these links. As I said before, my tasks, being able to roll up my tasks from multiple areas into a single list, not logging into system A, not logging into the project board, not logging into another application, just all into one. COVID-19 information is pretty prominent and said, the ability to upload your vaccination status and certificates. Where they get stored, whether it's in your HRS system, it doesn't matter, integration is key to that. Things like birthdays and anniversaries, being able to celebrate people's, work anniversaries. They've been here for 5 years, they've been here for 3 years, they've been here for 20 years. And that's pretty important to a lot of organisations and people. Simple things like leave requests and calendars, whether they are standalone or integrated with a HR system, mission and values. Company news, just messaging back our company news as well, and targeting that company news to whether it's organisational wide, whether it's departmental wide, whether it's based on a particular team. Pushing out company alerts as well, and again, personalising those. So if there's an alert that's required for a certain team, making sure that team sees it. Get rid of that sort of clutter. Latest documents, being able to quickly access the latest documents I've been working on without having to go back into my document management system or my file structure or back into SharePoint or Google Drive, but surfacing the latest documents that I've been working on without having to navigate any areas. My team, see who's in my team and find out more about them. Sometimes we work with a team that is, dispersed across either offices, across cities, across states, across countries. And these teams get formed, right? But finding out a little bit more about those people as well is really important. Integration is a real big key to this as well. So as I said before, having a central place to go to, but integrating with other systems. By no means are we advocating getting rid of other systems and so forth. It's about having that central area to find the information that I need on a day-to-day basis to be able to do my work without having to log into 5 or 6 or have multiple screens open all the time. So pulling the information that I require at that moment in time to do my work. Things like policy management. How do we ensure that if we have a policy that's released, that people actually understand those corporate policies and have accepted that they understand those? Just simple things like that. Some other considerations as well is central area. How do we raise things like risk management? Addressing and controlling risks of an organisation. Things like contract management. Do we need to be going to various different parts of the organisation to be managing our contracts? Controlled document management. So how do we manage documents today? Whether that final document, that final approved document lives within the digital workplace, or lives in your HR system, or lives in your document management system, how are we managing the life cycle of those, the approvals, the reviews, etc. Having a central place for forms and workflows, whether the end input of those forms, again, live in SharePoint, live somewhere else, live back in your HR system. Having that central place to go for your form, and automating as much as possible to meet your business requirements. How are we dealing with compliance management as well? So having that central place to have all your corporate compliances and your NCRs, making sure that, I'm not going again multiple systems to get this. And issues management. How are we dealing with things like issues management? So all these can form part of a digital workplace, or as we used to call it, mostly people still call it an intranet. So these are all components that form part of what that digital workplace is. And your HR systems, the information in your HR system should be serviced in there as well. So that's pretty much what I've got to talk to today, and I'll sort of rush through a lot of this. But for me, it's about ensuring that we are employee-centric. We really are thinking about what's relevant to me as an individual on a day-to-day basis to do my work. And information I need today may be different information I might need tomorrow and next week, and depending on what team I'm in. So that's pretty much it. I didn't want to sort of raise too much, but I just wanted to raise a bit of awareness around what a visual workplace may be.
Interesting, and it wasn't until you put that question up of what we thought of the intranet that I realised I have such negative feelings about it. It definitely needed rebranding, I think, but that's super helpful to have that insight into what the digital workplace means. I guess you mentioned that purpose is really important for an organisation when they're putting one together. So would you be able to maybe expand a little bit on how you work out what you need from your digital workplace, especially if you haven't traditionally had a great intranet?
So for us, it's more about understanding the purpose, and that purpose is different for most organisations. Some organisations want a central place to push corporate messaging, and that's fine. But that personalisation of the individual is more important. I want to be able to subscribe to certain information. If I'm getting information to do with marketing or events, unless they're mandatory, I should be able to subscribe to that. I should be able to personalise that as well. So that purposefulness, or that purpose of the internet is really key. And that comes around having discussions with the organisation. As I said, every organisation is different from that aspect.
The other thing I imagine a digital workplace is only successful if people engage with it. So what about making sure that happens once you put the work in, it's established? How do you go about making sure that people actually use it?
Absolutely. So what we find is if people don't believe or have the value in using it in your workplace, they will certainly go places. So it's about that less is more approach. Don't clutter the internet or the digital workplace with all the information. Let it organically grow and provide that feedback mechanism, and that also the mechanism to personalise. So if they're able to personalise their homepage, if they're able to personalise the information, the widgets, the web parts, whatever else, that's the important part.
What about security aspects in a working from home or hybrid workplace? The question from the audience is, how can HR drive and communicate this to the workforce with the IT department? I guess you mentioned some of that in your presentation, but is there more you can tell us about that?
Absolutely. So security is first and foremost, and that to me is, that goes without saying. We need to have that security as much. And when I say, less IT involvement, I don't say no, I don't mean no IT involvement. They still have the responsibility of managing that platform, right? But the ongoing updating should be there. However, security is first and foremost. So when I look at the Microsoft approach to this, with the Microsoft 365 platform, security is baked in. Most enterprise digital workplace or internet vendors have security baked in. Things like two-factor authentication, making sure that that information is safe and secure. So that is definitely.
How do you meet people where they are? So, for example, they're using Slack, Teams, email. Can this be pushed from one central place?
Absolutely. So, authoring information in that one place and pushing out to multiple sort of endpoints is really important. Whether I'm pushing a message to Slack or to Teams, or whether I'm pushing an email or I'm pushing notifications to my phone. That's where that omni-channel approach comes in. Being able to author in that one place, being able to manage my content in one place, and being able to push that out to multiple endpoints.
Now, if Alex wasn't videoing, I thought he might have asked this question because it's a good plug for you. Where does an organisation start with an Novata solution?
Just out the door, as you go out. Look, to me, it's not about pushing Novata solutions today, overtly. But just have a think about how you're currently communicating and engaging with your team. What platforms and what approaches. What we find is that there's just so many applications that most employees have to either use to get their organisational information, that it becomes overwhelming. I need to log into application A to my request. I need to log into application B to get my policy. I need to get my corporate messaging from whether it's Facebook Workplace or an intranet of other sorts or Teams. To me, it's about just have that conversation. Whether you have an existing partner, have that conversation with them, have that conversation internally. Run a survey with your staff, your employees, and say, how are you finding the way to communicate with you? How are you finding the information that you're sharing? And if you don't have a partner, just reach out.
That was fantastic. Ladies and gentlemen, please thank Rinaldo De Paolis.